They say grief shows people's true colors. In my case, it revealed that my mother-in-law's favorite color was the green of my late husband's life insurance check. I'm Madeline Carter, though my mother-in-law Patricia never lets me forget I was born Madeline Walsh, daughter of a high school teacher and a nurse. Not exactly the blue blood pedigree she'd hoped for when her only son brought me home. At 33, I found myself navigating two impossible situations: being a widow and dealing with Patricia's escalating demands for financial support. Andrew died 6 months ago in a skiing accident in Aspen. One moment he was at the top of the Black Diamond Run he conquered dozens of times before. The next he was gone. A hidden ice patch, a wrong turn, and our life together shattered like the poles they found scattered across the slope. The first few weeks after the accident were a blur. Patricia took charge of the funeral arrangements, steamrolling over my preferences with practiced ease. The Carters have always used Morrison Funeral Home, she'd declare, or Andrew would have wanted the mahogany casket. It's traditional. I was too numb to fight her then. Andrew had been my rock, my protector, my partner in everything since college. We'd met in the university library where I worked part-time, him researching for his business degree, me studying for my master's in library science. He didn't care that I came from a modest background or that my idea of fine dining was Olive Garden. He loved me for me. Patricia, however, had other ideas from the start. "At least you're pretty," she'd said during our first meeting, eyeing my department store dress with barely concealed disdain. "We can work with pretty. The rest, well, that's what finishing schools are for." But Andrew had stood firm against his mother's attempts to improve me. He loved my career as a children's librarian, supported my passion for literacy outreach programs, and told Patricia in no uncertain terms that if she couldn't accept me as I was, she wouldn't be part of our lives. That changed after his death. "Madeline, darling," Patricia cornered me after the funeral, her designer perfume almost suffocating in its intensity. "We need to discuss practical matters. The family's financial advisor will be meeting with us tomorrow." I tried to demur. I was exhausted, grieving, barely able to process that Andrew was gone. But Patricia insisted, and the next day I found myself in the oppressive mahogany-paneled office of Harrison Wells, who'd apparently managed Carter family money since God was young. "The life insurance payout is substantial," Harrison explained, shuffling papers importantly. Andrew was always prudent about such matters. $2 million, plus the house and his investment portfolio. Patricia's perfectly manicured hand found mine, squeezing with artificial comfort. "You see, darling, Andrew made sure you'd be taken care of. Now, about the family trust." That was the beginning. Somehow, during that meeting and the ones that followed, Patricia began positioning herself as the authority on how Andrew's money should be handled. She had opinions about everything: which investments to maintain, which ones to liquidate, how the insurance money should be allocated. Andrew would have wanted to maintain the family standard of living, she'd say, sighing heavily. The country club membership, the annual charity gala contributions, the summer house maintenance. Before I knew what was happening, I was paying for all of it. The property taxes on Patricia's mansion, the upkeep of the family's vacation home in Martha's Vineyard, her country club dues, her weekly salon appointments, all supposedly temporary measures while her own investments matured. It's what family does. She'd remind me whenever I questioned an expense. Andrew would be horrified to see his mother living like a common person. I allowed it because in those early days of grief, Patricia was my only connection to Andrew. She had his eyes, some of his mannerisms, and an endless supply of stories about his childhood. I was desperate to hold on to any piece of him I could. The breaking point came gradually. First, it was the comments about my job. "A librarian? Still," Patricia would say during our weekly dinners, which I also paid for. "Darling, you don't need to work anymore. It's almost embarrassing, a Carter widow sorting children's books." Then came the criticism of my home. The modest 4-bedroom Andrew and I had chosen together, preferring to live below our means and donate to causes we cared about. "You should move into something more appropriate," Patricia suggested. "The Ashworth estate is for sale. Just a small matter of $2 million. The same amount as my insurance payout. How convenient." But it was the Literacy Foundation that finally opened my eyes. Andrew and I had always dreamed of starting a children's literacy program in underserved communities. I'd begun the paperwork to establish it in his memory using part of the insurance money. "Oh, darling, no," Patricia interrupted my excited explanation during another expensive dinner. We couldn't possibly have the Carter name associated with some inner-city charity. I've already committed those funds to renovating the country club's golf course. The board is expecting the donation next week. You did what? Well, someone has to maintain the family's social obligations, she sniffed. Really, Madeline, it's been 6 months. This middle-class mindset of yours needs to go. I went home that night and really looked at my bank statements for the first time since Andrew's death. The numbers were staggering. In 6 months, Patricia had maneuvered me into spending over $800,000 on various family obligations. That's when I called Andrew's old college roommate, Michael Jean, now a forensic accountant. Something's not right, I told him. Can you look into the Carter family finances, discreetly? Michael's investigation took 2 weeks. When he called me for a meeting, his typically jovial face was serious. Maddie, he said, spreading documents across his desk, you need to see this. The Carter family fortune? It's gone, has been for years. Patricia's been running a complex shell game, borrowing from one account to pay another, using your money to cover increasingly desperate schemes. But that wasn't the worst part. There's more, Michael said quietly. That skiing accident that killed Andrew. I found some interesting insurance inquiries from Patricia in the weeks before it happened. Very interesting inquiries. Michael's words hit me like a physical blow. What kind of insurance inquiries? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. He pulled out a stack of emails obtained through his investigation. 3 weeks before Andrew's accident, Patricia contacted 5 different insurance companies asking about policy payouts in cases of extreme sports accidents. She specifically asked about skiing fatalities. The room spun. I gripped the edge of Michael's desk, fighting waves of nausea. That doesn't necessarily mean. No, it doesn't, Michael agreed. But there's more. The week before the Aspen trip, she took out a substantial loan using the family's summer house as collateral. The due date? 1 day after the insurance payout was scheduled to clear. I remembered Patricia's insistence that Andrew go on that ski trip, even though he'd initially planned to skip it and stay home with me. How she upgraded him to the luxury lodge overlooking the most challenging runs. How she'd encouraged him to tackle the Black Diamond slope despite poor conditions. I've also found evidence of long-term financial fraud. Michael continued gently. Patricia's been running a Ponzi scheme through the Carter Family Foundation for years. She's been using charitable donations to cover personal expenses and pay off earlier investors. The more Michael revealed, the clearer the picture became. Patricia hadn't just been manipulating me, she'd been desperately trying to maintain her facade of wealth while everything crumbled around her. My insurance money had been a lifeline she'd grabbed with both hands. What do you want to do? Michael asked. I thought about Andrew, about his passion for justice and his belief in doing what's right. Everything, I said. I want to know everything. The next month was a crash course in forensic accounting and legal documentation. Michael connected me with Sarah Chen, a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes, and together we built a case that would shatter Patricia's carefully constructed world. We discovered that the Carter family fortune had been depleted long before I entered the picture, squandered by Patricia's father on bad investments and gambling debts. Patricia had spent decades maintaining the illusion of wealth through increasingly desperate means. The country club renovation donation she committed me to, part of a complex scheme to cover her embezzlement from the club's endowment fund. The summer house she used as collateral? She'd already mortgaged it 3 times under different subsidiaries she controlled. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Harrison Wells, the family's financial advisor, broke under questioning and revealed that Patricia had approached him about arranging an accident months before Andrew's death. She was desperate, he admitted to the investigators. The Ponzi scheme was collapsing, investors were asking questions. She needed a large cash infusion fast, and she knew about Andrew's life insurance policy. The final confrontation happened at the country club during the annual charity gala Patricia had insisted I fund. She was holding court in her usual spot by the champagne fountain when I arrived with Sarah Chen and 2 FBI agents. Madeline, darling. Patricia's smile faltered slightly as she noticed my companions. What's all this? Your game is over, Patricia, I said quietly. We know everything. The fraud, the embezzlement, the insurance scam, and Andrew. Her champagne glass shattered on the marble floor. A Around us, the social elite of Boston stopped their conversations, sensing drama unfolding. "How dare you?" Patricia hissed, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done to me," I corrected, "and to Andrew. Did you even feel guilty sending your own son to his death for money?" The FBI agents stepped forward as Patricia tried to bolt. The arrest of Patricia Carter became the scandal of the season. Boston's premier socialite led away in handcuffs during her own charity gala. The aftermath was both swift and comprehensive. Patricia's financial crimes spanned decades and impacted hundreds of victims. The prosecutor offered her a deal: plead guilty to the financial charges, and they wouldn't pursue the murder investigation. She took it, facing 15 years in federal prison. The Carter Family Foundation was dissolved, its remaining assets used to repay victims. The summer house and Patricia's mansion were seized as part of the settlement. I used part of my remaining insurance money to purchase the mansion at auction, not to live in, but to convert into the Andrew Carter Memorial Library and Literacy Center. "The ultimate revenge," Michael joked as we toured the renovated building, turning her shrine to wealth into a public library. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about honoring who Andrew really was, not the society sham Patricia had tried to shape him into. The Literacy Foundation we dreamed of now operates from his childhood home, providing books and educational programs to thousands of children annually. I kept one room exactly as it was, Andrew's childhood library, where he'd spend hours reading while Patricia attended her social functions. It's my favorite place to host story times, watching children sprawl on the same window seat where my husband once dreamed of making a difference in the world. Patricia's country club friends all disappeared naturally. Amazing how quickly social status evaporates when the mansion becomes a library and the designer wardrobe is auctioned to repay fraud victims. She serves her sentence in a minimum security facility in Florida. Apparently, that's where disgraced socialites serve their time. Last month, I received a letter from her. Pages of excuses, justifications, and manipulations, ending with a request for money in her commissary account. I donated the letter to the library's true crime section and used the stamp to mail a book to one of our outreach programs. The irony doesn't escape me that Patricia's desperation for money ultimately cost her everything: her freedom, her status, and most tragically, her son. The Carter name no longer stands for old money and social status. Instead, it represents literacy, education, and opportunity for all. Yesterday, during our annual memorial reading of The Great Gatsby, Andrew's favorite book, a young girl asked me why there were no pictures of Mrs. Carter on the library walls. "Because this place isn't about preserving wealth or status," I told her. "It's about what Andrew really valued: learning, growing, and helping others." I've kept only one photo from my life with Patricia. It's from my wedding day. A candid shot of Andrew laughing at something while his mother looks on disapprovingly. I keep it in my office as a reminder that the trappings of wealth and status mean nothing compared to genuine love and integrity. The insurance money Patricia was so desperate to control. Most of it now funds scholarships and literacy programs. Every year, we help dozens of children discover the joy of reading in the same rooms where Patricia once plotted their exclusion from her social circle. Sometimes, late at night in Andrew's childhood library, I swear I can feel his presence. Not the society here Patricia tried to create, but the man who fought to be himself, who loved a librarian, who dreamed of making books accessible to everyone. That's the real Carter legacy, and no amount of designer clothes or country club memberships could ever match its worth.